Thanks very much, Judy, for that warm welcome and good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we're gathered and pay my respects to elders past and present. Can I particularly acknowledge Judy Crowe, VASSP President, and Noel Claridge, VASSP Vice President, and to all of you, principals, assistant principals, school leaders today, our visitors from New South Wales, welcome. Thank you for this kind invitation, and it's always great to spend some time with the Victorian Association of State Secondary School Principals. And it's wonderful to be surrounded by such committed and experienced education leaders. VASSP has a very, very strong reputation for its dedication to supporting the welfare of Victoria's school leaders and the drive towards excellence in Victoria's schools. And this is a reputation that is justified. You make an incredible contribution to our shared mission of bringing the education state to life, and I want to thank you all for your passion, your commitment, and your partnership, most importantly. Following on from the success of last year's event, it's a pleasure to welcome so many, as we've just heard from Judy, so many distinguished speakers to examine how together we can create better futures for Victoria's young people. It's incredible how much influence school leaders like you have on your teachers and your students. You are the leaders of so much progress, so much of our progress in the education state, and the government is committed to supporting your incredibly important contribution. Because, as the saying goes, as is the principal, so is the school, I would also add to that idea, as is the school, so is the future. So it's great to see the focus of your conference on transformation and 21st century skills. This is perfectly in sync with our education state goals. The education state began with a vision for a future where every single school is a great school, a future where our system gives every Victorian, regardless of background or circumstance, access to a world-class education that gives them the best chance to thrive and prosper. The government's sustained, record-breaking investment in education is one of the keys to making that vision a reality. And we're already seeing some early signs of progress. And for those of you who attended one of the 4 regional forums that we held recently, I spoke about the imperative that we show progress. There's got to be steps forward so people don't lose faith with the education state reform agenda, and we are seeing some optimistic, positive signs. Preliminary NAPLAN results for 2017 show that the proportion of students in the top 3 bands of reading and numeracy has increased in all year levels between 2016 and 2017. We can expect, and we do expect, and I hope every single one of you expects as well, that our reforms focusing on equity and improving student outcomes will lead to further improvements in future years. If I can just talk about a disappointing thing just for a moment, I want to keep this absolutely positive, but as we've talked about in previous forums, the political football of education funding, the difference between the states and territories and the federal government, that challenge continues. It's disappointing that the Commonwealth Government has reneged on the joint commitment made in the original Gonski Agreement to deliver needs-based funding for all students. To give you a sense of the challenge before us, the legislation that went through the Senate just a little while ago puts a ceiling on needs-based funding. It's not a needs-based model. The ceiling that the Commonwealth has put on itself is 20%, yet via the legislation, it asks or it demands that the states and territories make up that difference. So in previous negotiations around federal funding, the focus, particularly as you know, years 5 and 6 was the significant uplift in Commonwealth funding for government schools. That's no longer the case. So we've gone from Gonski funding here to Gonski 2.0 here, so a slight increase in federal funding, yet that gap in legislation is now required of states to meet, and it's billions of additional dollars. It's quite incredible. The other thing that is at risk is every single dollar, not just the new funding for 2008, but base funding. If we don't sign an interim agreement in the next few months, under the legislation, base funding from the federal government is at risk. So for government schools, that's about $1.68 billion. For all Victorian schools, that's about $4.5 billion at risk. So I had hoped to give you better news at this conference. We will negotiate the best possible deal for Victorian schools. We're not going to cut our nose off to spite our face, but the challenge is still before us. I'll be positive from now on. So back to technology. Due to factors like globalisation, social progression and technological advancements, the world is changing rapidly, and we want Victoria to be at the forefront of that change. In fact, a recent VicHealth CSIRO report identified the 5 impacts of globalisation and technology will be among the 5 mega trends that impact the well-being of young people over the next 20 years. These are trends that we're all grappling with, and leading the way through this period of change is not easy. Technology is moving quickly, and in many cases, we don't know what types of jobs our children will be doing in the future. But we do know the core skills that they will need to succeed. Increasingly, STEM will be the key. Already, it's estimated that 75% of today's fastest growing occupations require STEM skills. So in response to this, we've set some ambitious education state targets for achieving student excellence in reading, in maths and science, and the arts, as well as critical and creative thinking, to build an innovative entrepreneurial workforce of the future. Thanks to your hard work and leadership, we're continuing to focus on ensuring that our schools are matching today's learning with tomorrow's jobs and preparing today's students for tomorrow's society. That's why we're focusing, for example, on digital literacy at all levels of our education system. Under the new curriculum, we have implemented a new digital technologies curriculum in all government schools from prep to year 10. It's a firm recognition that we need to be teaching digital skills in all of our primary schools, and we need to be building on those skills year on year in our high schools. And as part of their school enrolment, students will also spend time at one of our 10 state-of-the-art tech schools that are rolling out across Victoria. Local industries are working with TAFEs and universities to design tech school programs to ensure they are complementing school learning and preparing secondary students for the jobs of the future. To further help young Victorians prepare for the future, I've requested that the department also commence a comprehensive review into career education in government schools. This review, led by Dandelo Partners and the Mitchell Institute, will build on the solid foundations already in place by exploring opportunities to strengthen the career education support offered to students in the education state. The review will look at embedding career education in the school curriculum from early primary through to senior secondary, engaging industry, employers, tertiary providers and parents to create work-related experiences and opportunities inside and outside of the classroom, providing students with more accurate and timely information about current and future jobs and pathways. The review will offer stakeholders, including obviously principals, teachers and students, the chance to have their say on the future of career education in Victorian government schools. This work is so important to Victoria's future economic and social prosperity, and I encourage you to contribute to this work in the months ahead. We have some great examples of career education and pathways and opening up horizons for young people, but we also have examples where the career education is no better than when I was at high school, or when many of you were at high school. And you just look at what course you'd like to do, what you need to get to do it, and not much more engagement beyond that. And this is some feedback I've had from students such as the Rural Ambassadors program. So I am really positive about what that review will lead to. Onto digital technology. As we continue to shape Victoria's place in the future, we need to continue our focus on transforming our system through innovative, cutting-edge teaching practices. Thanks to the outstanding work of innovative school leaders, This transformation is happening. I mentioned the Rural Youth Ambassadors. Had a chat to them recently about their experiences with digital technology. They spoke to me about their challenges with accessing some subjects in remote schools and their triumphs in using technology to gain access to subjects not offered locally. It was great feedback. They've shown me that we are on the right track and we are making the difference, but we need to provide greater support for schools to do so. Just one example of how digital technologies is being used. Hawkesdale Peter 12 College in Western Victoria, Year 12 biology students use Polycom to bring the world-class laboratories of the Melbourne-based Gene Technology Access Centre into their classroom. Across the state, your work is helping us to open up a world where students can use technology to inspire creativity, spark collaboration, and develop real-world solutions to complex problems. At Brayoak College, the school library was transformed into a vibrant, creative maker hub where students can code, draw, design in 3D, create and collaborate in informal groups. From being an underutilised space for many students, the college's library has been transformed into a buzzing hive of before-school, recess and lunchtime creativity. Mirroring this kind of progression you are leading across the education state, the space began with Lego, but now it's gone on to a very different building blocks. At Charles La Trobe College, for example, students can learn about astronomy, electronics, 3D fabrication technologies, robotics, Formula One racing, thanks to the school's cutting-edge STEM offerings. We're taking great strides, but we need to keep pushing forward. It's why we're investing in a suite of leading educational software so that teachers and students can use the same industry standard technology as engineers, economists, scientists and mathematicians worldwide. It's one of the thinking behind the tech schools as well, using technology, equipment, software, learning that is at the leading edge of industry right now. With tools like the Wolfram Suite and Adobe Creative Cloud apps, students will be able to take real-life data and make graphical and animated representations of it, perhaps around population change or ocean salinity. These are very exciting tools to introduce into our schools. The government is also investing in a fund to help up to 150 Victorian secondary schools further boost their digital learning capability. This investment will provide teachers at those schools with professional development opportunities and their schools with the chance to boost digital learning by purchasing new STEM equipment. And as I talk about giving our teachers the support they need to give our students the education they deserve, I'm proud to talk briefly about our new schools enterprise bargaining agreement, which is in the final stages at the Fair Work Commission. I expect to get the final sign-off very, very shortly. This agreement has been designed to ensure better conditions for teachers and support staff and proper recognition for the valuable work of our principals and our school leaders. The EBA will help us to build and support a workforce that is dedicated, inspired and equipped to give our students the best possible education. The EBA will support teachers to work collaboratively, share information and improve their skills in the area that will best contribute to improving the outcomes of their students. The department will provide, once the agreement is finalised, will provide practical tools, including guidelines, case studies and templates to help schools deliver professional practice elements to their teachers. So the agreement very much, it's not the be-all and end-all, but it's an important tool and it's not just about wages and conditions. The agreement reflects our priorities for the education state. We want every Victorian school to provide an environment that promotes excellence and inspires pride. Collectively, we need to build our system's capacity to support the environment. We want to build and support a workforce that is dedicated, inspired and equipped to give our students the best possible education. And of course, as is the principal, so is the school. The culture of excellence that we are striving for in our schools begins with confident, committed and passionate leaders working together to drive our system forward in every corner of the education state. In this time of great change, you set the standard that our school communities follow. By embracing the opportunities to transform learning in our state, you are building a legacy that will transform countless Victorian lives. You are the backbone of our system and the key to our progress. In recent years, I've enjoyed the opportunity to visit many of our schools, and I've spoken to many of you about the challenges you face to deliver this work every single day. School leadership is always a demanding role, and providing that leadership in a time of such significant global change only adds to the complexity involved. I know how hard your jobs can be, or how hard your jobs are, in fact. In the education state, we are privileged to have leaders like you to guide our students through this period of uncertainty. And as you continue to give so much of yourselves to help your students thrive, I hope you remember how important you are to Victoria. That's probably the main message I want you to hear from myself as Education Minister. You are the absolute key. Our principals, our assistant principals, our school leaders. At the recent Regional Principals Forum, I spoke to many of you about the Principal Health and Wellbeing strategy that the government is developing. The strategy will align to the new whole of Victorian Government Charter for Mental Health and Wellbeing. As you are no doubt aware, I released a discussion paper on this strategy last week. I also announced that the government will invest an initial $4 million to pilot things like early intervention strategies, specialist advice services for principals, professional learning to develop mental health awareness and literacy, and coaching panels of retired principals trained in psychological health. More than 100 principals and experts have been consulted as part of the strategy's development so far. And of course, your input is fundamental for building the proactive culture of support that we need in the education state. The government is committed to working with you to build the best system that we can. That includes working with you to improve the mental health and wellbeing of principals across Victoria. So we'll have some further consultation with Victorian principals. We'll hold those over terms 3 and 4 for the strategy. That'll include workshops, online engagement on the discussion paper. Your mental health and wellbeing matters, so please, again, I keep asking you to have your say, but it's important that we do. We want to make sure that we get this absolutely right. So this is mental health and wellbeing. In discussions even as recently as Friday of last week with a number of principals, talked about the challenges of managing performance of staff and the like. You may not have seen it, but in the budget we provided some additional funding for industrial relations support at a regional level. So hopefully I'll be able to talk to you about that additional support for principals, because I know that those issues add to the stress and your own well-being when you're dealing with quite difficult IR matters. So we're trying to add to the support that you've got central by providing additional support at the regional level. So it's a pleasure to be here among so many passionate education leaders to talk to you about all of this important work, from the focus of your conference on transformation and 21st century skills to mental health and wellbeing, the enterprise agreement, and the care and support that we want to provide you. One thing that concerns me is a discussion I recently had with a principal, big school. She's got four APs, and she doesn't think any of those 4 APs are interested in going on to becoming a principal because of the demands of the job. So I really want to focus the remaining period of this term in government to see what further support we can provide you to make sure that this is a leadership pathway that is supported as best as it can be. So thank you again for your time this morning. It's always a pleasure to speak with VASSP members. I wish you all the very best for your conference, and I look forward to working with you in the weeks and months ahead. Thanks very much.
Well, James, I'm sure if those 4 APs are here, that by the time they've finished this conference, they'll be raring to go. We appreciate what a busy life you have, and I have a small token of our appreciation, and it's a children's book written by one of the students from one of our schools. In fact, it's just been published, and it reflects on the journey she had when she spent her early childhood in an Indigenous community. So, James, I hope you find time to read it to your children, and remember VASSP as you were doing that. So, thanks very much.